Welcome Myconfession viewers. Today we have a confession ready for you titled, "The Most Exciting Adventure I Have Had on a Business Trip." It is about a successful woman having an affair with a married man. Both persons are happily married. How had it started? Were they caught? Did they leave their partners for each other? Did the secret come out? The confession was told through AI to protect the persons in this story. The names and places were also changed to ensure anonymity. Let's jump right in. Within the company where I work, I have worked my way up considerably. I have been working there for 4 years now. I now have a lot of responsibility, a good salary, and I have to go abroad regularly. During one such trip a few years ago, I met Brandon. Brandon is married and has 2 children. I myself have been living with Ken for 6 years. But no one knows that when Brandon and I meet on business trips, we have wonderful sex. When I first met Brandon, I was in Spain on business. He did not work for the same company as me, but he worked for a company we worked with a lot. He was a nice guy, a bit older than me, but I didn't fall for him right away. On the second day, we ended up in the hotel bar with some Dutch and English people, and that's where Brandon and I were the last ones left. That night we shared a hotel room for the first time, and it was super. Wonderfully uncomplicated sex with someone with whom you end up having little to do. Neither of us was too difficult about it. We didn't want anything else from each other. I was already living with Ken at the time, and Brandon had been married for a few years. Our colleagues didn't notice anything. At the end of the night, Brandon went to his own hotel room. We didn't see each other again until breakfast. And in retrospect, I think we did deserve an Oscar for our acting. No one was suspicious. Luckily, because everyone knows I have a boyfriend. A few of my colleagues even know Ken, so that would make things very awkward. Anyway, Brandon, then. A reasonably successful businessman. Bit smooth type maybe, but I like him. Fine was that we agreed that this should stay between us. He doesn't want to lose his wife and children either, so she shouldn't know anything. It was clear that we both liked it, because a business trip later we ended up in bed together again. A couple of times even. Sex with Brandon is so good. At the same time, I don't attach too much importance to it because I don't want anything else with him. Maybe that's why it's so good. All breaks off and the next day neatly back to work as colleagues. It makes it very exciting. There is no one I have told this to, not even my best friend. She knows Ken very well and would immediately be ready with an opinion. I would feel justified in doing so, although that may sound crazy. I know what I'm doing is wrong. It is unfair and I should be ashamed of myself in front of Ken. But on the other hand, as unpleasant as it sounds, what I don't know won't hurt me. I am otherwise getting on well with Ken. He also has a busy career, but we are both happy with our relationship. In the beginning, I made myself quite worried about my behavior. What was I doing? But you know, it's so incredibly tempting to keep repeating myself. Brandon and I see each other a few times a year in Spain. It happened once that we ran into each other unexpectedly at a conference in Copenhagen. That was a nice surprise that we also definitely celebrated. Other than that, therefore, there is no contact between us. That's how we agreed. We don't text, app or call. So when he turned up there and we saw each other, I couldn't wait until it was evening and the day's activities were over. Of course, I know this probably won't last for years, but for now, I am enjoying it. My guilt I put overboard. What I have with Brandon is so different from the loving bond one have with Ken. Brandon is lust, Ken is love. Of course, that makes Brandon interesting, and I have to admit that the sex I have with him is really a few steps beyond that with Ken. Wild and heady. I also sometimes think of Brandon when it takes me too long to travel again, but I will never call him in between. We have to keep our distance from each other, otherwise we make it impossible for each other and ourselves.
Adultery is a brief moment of sham pleasure that can ruin an entire life and that of our children. Proverbs says the path of the frivolous woman or man, leads to the grave. It seems attractive and can be tempting. Her lips are smooth, she speaks flattering words, she looks beautiful, and it is exciting to be intimately involved with someone else. But in the end, her seduction is as bitter as poison and as sharp as a double-edged sword. What are consequences of adultery through the lens of the Bible? First, it disrupts the relationship with God. David, after falling into the sin of adultery with Bathsheba, prayed, "Against thee alone have I sinned." You offend God as if his redemptive work on your life means nothing. After all, he caused us to be born again, and therefore he also expects its fruit in our lives. But instead, we then bring forth stinking fruit. Secondly, if you are a Christian, you drag the name of God through the mud, the devil laughs and the world laughs around you. As a child of God, you bear his name, and if you sin, then it is not to his honor. Nathan said to David, "By this act you have caused the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme." Third, you commit a terrible sin against your own wife or husband. You reject the one you promised to continue to love, honor and protect as long as you both live. It is a form of betrayal, because the marriage covenant is broken. Fourth, if you have children, you damage them too. Now the children cannot bask in the love that daddy and mummy have for each other. You lose your credibility and the trust of your children. You are no longer an example of faithfulness, and the authority you have over your children is compromised. How can a daughter of an adulterous father still look up to her father with respect and reverence? That is precisely what children need so much, that they can look up to their parents. I am not here to judge her. But sometimes we sacrifice something that makes us happy in the long run for a short-term pleasure. After we lose it, we want it back, but then it is too late. Thank you for listening and watching this confession. If you have not received Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, then I beg you do it before it is too late. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more clips. Be sure to hit the notification button to be the first to be there. See you at the next Myconfession video, and be blessed.